Shalom uvracha, peace and blessings to all of you who've tuned in to join us today. I'm Rabbi Jonah Pesner, the director of the Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism, the largest and most diverse denomination in Jewish life. It is now 74 days since Putin's war against the people of Ukraine, and we are so honored and moved that we are joined today by Rabbi Julia Gris, who is the rabbi of Shirat Hayam, the Song of the Sea Synagogue in Odessa, Ukraine. Of course, she is joining us not from Ukraine at this moment. She had an incredible escape and a journey. She'll tell you about it herself, and is now temporarily in a refugee camp in Germany. We are so grateful to have Rabbi Gris with us to tell her story, the story of her congregation and community in Odessa, Ukraine, but of course to tell the story more broadly of the crisis that is unfolding in our midst. Rabbi Julia Gris, welcome to our conversation.
Shalom. Shalom is most important word for now for all Ukrainian people. So thank you to invite me.
It's an honor to have you, Rabbi Gris. And I just want to take a moment. I know everybody watching this is praying for your family, for your community, for the people that are left behind in Ukraine. So I just want to take a moment and acknowledge the real suffering that's happening, even as we have this conversation. Deep breath. Thank you for being here. And I want to ask you to tell your story, Rabbi Gris. You have been serving in Odessa for some time. Tell us how you became a rabbi, and then a rabbi who decided to serve the people of Odessa, Ukraine.
My personal story is quite funny, probably, because I grew up in a Soviet Jewish family without any religion, just with my cultural Jewishness. And when I was 18, I met first rabbi in my life. Of course, Orthodox rabbi, Chabad rabbi. Yeah, and I started to do my first steps in Judaism and was so involved in Jewish life. And one day he told me, "Oh, Julia, you're so smart, so wise. You can be even the wife of the rabbi." I said, "No, probably I would like to be rabbi to myself." And at that moment, I already know about Reform Judaism and about the women's role in Reform Judaism, and decided to be a rabbi. It was long way before I decided and before I became a rabbi. I was studied at Machon. It was like Institute for Community Workers in Kiev, firstly. It was run by World Union of Progressive Judaism in the end of 90s, I think. So, and after I was invited as a para-rabbi, as a community worker, to work to build the congregation in Odessa. It was 22 years ago. I moved to Odessa, and now I was part of Jewish life in Odessa. And after 9 years of working and building the Reform congregation in Odessa, I went to study to the Leo Baeck College and came back as a rabbi to my home, Odessa community.
And give us a picture. What is it like for the Jewish community and for the community more broadly in Odessa? Before the war, what was life like for you?
Before the war, historically, Odessa is a city with very rich Jewish historical heritage. As I told, I lived there for 22 years. And every day, I really have fun with lovely Jewish communal life. Because in Odessa it was presented to all Jewish organization. We had 4 religious congregations, to Orthodox, to liberal, Reform and conservative. And people in Odessa, Jewish people in Odessa, always have choice which project or which organization community they can be involved, when they can find themselves. So we have Jewish museum, Jewish restaurants, lots of youth Jewish clubs, and what is most important, very great Jewish network. And our congregation Shirat Hayam, progressive congregation, started the work in Odessa from 2000, and our congregation has an image quite small but very friendly community, like family type community. So when I say small, we had before the war we had around 200 members, people who are involved in our programs. And in Odessa, after Soviet period and before the war, I think about 30,000 Jews still lived there before the latest invasion, and it is out of million inhabitants of Odessa city. And what is more sad, since the start of the war, around 30% have already left Odessa. And for me, it's one of the most difficult time on my life, seeing this disintegration of the Jewish community, and it is a pain.
Rabbi Gris, our hearts are breaking with you, particularly because you love the community you served for 20 years. We can only imagine. Would you mind telling the story of what happened when Putin invaded and the war began, what your personal experience and your journey was?
21st of February, I was in west side of Ukraine, on the west of Ukraine in Lviv. So I was there for a little holiday with my daughter, and early morning, and our holiday supposed to be finished 24th of February. We had our tickets back to Odessa on 24th, and early morning, 24th of February, like 5 o'clock in the morning, I have got a phone call from the president of our congregation, from chairwoman of our congregation, who just cried and saying, "Julia, please not come back, the war started." It is difficult, and it's difficult because no one was ready for this. It's a bit true, but a bit false, because the general rhetoric of Russian politics was very aggressive for a long time already. And Ukraine was in a war for 8 years. Russian army was oppressed eastern part of Ukraine, but never can imagine the real war will start. You know, it's difficult, first of all, emotionally, because when you knew about the war only from your grandparents, and you know the war is evil, you can start to understand what is in real. So we decided to stay in Ukraine for first day, but for second day, when we ran several times to the basement of because of Syrians, we decided to leave Ukraine, and we went to the border. Because we've been in Lviv, so we went to the border with Poland, and it was very hard adventure because we spent 40 hours waiting on a border in a freezing time because it was the winter. And first we walked about 30 kilometers. Not only me and my daughter, all people who went to the border at that time. It was massive people there. And it was very difficult because people crying, were crying, or lots of foreign students among of the people who tried to left Ukraine and go to their countries. It was almost all women with kids because men are not allowed to leave the country because of the war and this law of special time. So, and after 40 hours walking and staying and freezing, we got to Poland. It was very strange when we walked during the night in the forest, on the rain forest. I remember the irony of my family because I told to my daughter 100 years ago, my parents of my grandfather, they not parents, my grandfather left Poland because of pogroms, and his parents were killed, and all kids went to Ukraine. Ukraine became a place when they've been safe. And after 100 years, me with my daughter, we went to Poland because Poland became a place of safety for more than a million Ukrainian refugees. It is historical irony. It is historical irony that today and yesterday, the Victory Day, which I knew from my childhood, I'm here in Germany, and I feel another side of the victory. Now is this time when all my, not only my, but my first of all values can be changed. Not all, but many. And we stay in Poland for a couple weeks in the house of our longtime friends. It's a very lovely family of Christians. They name Maria and Gustav Mushket, and they were hosted Ukrainian Jewish refugees at the time, and still, I think, still, we stay there for a couple weeks, and this first couple weeks, I think I didn't sleep at all because I tried to help people who stay in Odessa, members of my congregation, to be evacuated from the city, together with the World Union of Progressive Judaism, who paid for evacuation buses and also give some financial support to the people who tried to evacuate from Ukraine. And I tried to be in contact with all our members. And every day we had evening service, evening prayer together, just as a part of some kind of stability and support to each other. So for a couple weeks, many of my congregants came to this lovely house in Poland, and after we were invited to Oldenburg, to Germany, and this is very unique, I think. It's very unique situation when I stay here in our dormitory refugee camp with members of my community. So sometimes I feel myself like on a long-term Shabbaton, you know. when you are with your when you're with your congregants for day and night, actually.
It's wonderful that you can smile and think of it as a Shabbaton, as a sabbatical, and all of your fans in the United States and Canada and across the world will help you experience this as a Shabbaton. I do want to make sure you know, Rabbi Gris, that when you were making that escape, those 40 hours of walking 30 kilometers, many rabbis in America in real time were following because Rabbi Leah Molstein, our colleague in Europe and the UK, was literally every hour posting an update, where you were, how far you had walked. So you had many, many of your Jewish family and rabbis with you.
I
Rabbi
really
Gris,
appreciate it, yeah. I know many Jewish people prayed for us at that time, and we were in connection with Rabbi Leah Milstein. We are very good friends, and we feel your support.
I'm glad. You talked about the historic irony, and I want to live with you in that for a moment. My own experience of the irony, and I should share, my own grandparents came from Odessa. They fled from Odessa, Ukraine, to the United States to escape the pogroms, just as you have your own experience in your family of the pogroms. And in a moment of irony, here in the US, I was asked to represent the Jewish community at a prayer vigil at the United States Congress with members of the Ukrainian Catholic community and the Ukrainian Christian community. And so I stood arm in arm with these Ukrainian priests who hugged me and thanked me and were so grateful that I was there. And I thought to myself, I wonder whether their grandparents had been perpetrating the pogroms against my grandparents. But here we are all together. So maybe this is, the irony that can bring us together. Another irony, of course, is that Putin is calling the Ukrainian regime Nazis, and he's claiming that part of his military action is to denazify Ukraine. As a Ukrainian Jew, knowing Zelensky himself is the descendant of Holocaust survivors and is himself a Jew, how do you make sense of this? How do you think about it?
Rabbi Pesner, I have another irony, my personal irony. As I told, I lived in Ukraine for 22 years, but I lived there with Russian passport. I have Russian citizenship. So, and for this time, for these 22 years, my daughter was born in Ukraine. I never felt any oppressed, no religious, no language oppressed, never. And this is irony. I think it's just profanation of the idea, and probably the just possibility how to hide their, Russian aggression, because it was something wrong in Russia. I felt it when I visited the country. There was something wrong with this idea of nation who win the war, like win the war. So when they said we will never again, so now they said we can again. And it sounds very aggressive. It's not just sounds very aggressive. It is very aggressive. We can see the action in Ukraine. So I can't comment it. And people in Russia, unfortunately, can't see or afraid to see the truth. They have a generation of generation of people who grew up with idea of some kind of patriotism. Patriotism is always good, but patriotism is not just saying it's everything good in our country. No, patriotism is saying the truth and saying about justice. As a rabbis, We know that justice in Judaism is a very important idea. Yeah, we know tzedek, 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 and now it's justice on Ukrainian side, and all this uh, rhetoric about Nazi in Ukraine, it is not true. Ukraine is democratic, independent country, and can build her society first of all as they want. Secondly, it's not true about Nazi idea in Ukraine, especially when we have the president, Jewish president. He's an extremely brave person. He's my generation Jewish boy, so I feel to him absolutely empathy, and he has a great soul. He's very talented. He has great soul, and he's very brave. I'm really proud of him. Not only about him, I'm really proud of all Ukrainian people. I never see Ukrainians so united. Never before. It's true. But I can confess this Ukrainian heroism, not only on the active war, but also in the cities when people support each other, help to each other. This is heroism. People who stay in Ukraine, we can just pray for them, but not just. Actually, we need to support them.
Well, let's say more because we will pray. But before I let you go, Rabbi Gris, what do you want the North American Jewish community to know? What do you want us to know? What do you want us to do? Where can we show support? How can we give resources? Help us because we want to help.
I know today the President of the United States give the land lease to Ukraine. I think it's very important support to Ukraine. But as a Jew, we can support Jewish communities, but not only. If we can think about Jewish future in Ukraine, we have to support people who stay there and people who will return there. I'm sure many people will return because as I see many families are separated now because men, husbands stay in Ukraine and mothers with kids are abroad in Poland, in Germany, in Israel, in the States. So one day they have to be united. And they will need support. They will need support to build Ukraine again, to rebuild our congregations, to actually any small thing will helpful. You can help through WPJ, World Union of Progressive Judaism, or you can help directly. You can help to help refugees, or you can help to the Ukrainian army. What is most important? So decided. For example, our chairwoman Lena Izmailova, she stays in Ukraine. She stays in Odessa, and all days of the war, she is very active volunteer, and also collected not only for community, volunteer for the society, and she also collected money via her Jewish networks, via our Jewish networks, to buy the body protectors for the soldiers. So it's a good example how to be helpful.
Very, very helpful. We will donate, we will advocate, and we will pray. We will do all of the above. And we thank you, Rabbi Gris. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for leading your community, even in refugee status. in Germany, in Poland, and thank you for being the moral voice to remind us of our obligation. And before we conclude, in addition to thanking all of the people who are watching, who are going to be moved by your story and are going to donate and advocate, the next opportunity for us to gather as a Reformed Jewish Movement family is on Tuesday evening, May 17th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, when we will launch our campaign, Every Voice, Every Vote, which is our commitment to the 2022 U.S. elections. One of the things that is happening in the Ukraine reminds us is of the importance of democracy, to protect democracy. And here in the U.S., we should never take it for granted. As Ukrainians are dying to protect their democracy, let us here in the U.S. commit to our democracy, engage in our democracy, even as we pray for, advocate for, and donate resources to the people of Ukraine. Thank you, Rabbi Julia Gris. We love you, we see you, and we wish you to go chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. May you go from strength to strength, and in so doing, strengthen all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.